Have you ever been removed from your family group chat? Not because of a fight, not because you did anything wrong, just because they didn't think you mattered enough to be kept in the loop. I was erased from the group chat on the very day my father was hospitalized. No message, no call, no check-in, just silence, as if I was no longer part of the family. I used to be the daughter who worked at the school, Canteen, the one everyone assumed would fail, but I chose silence. No complaints, no clapbacks. I rebuilt everything from a 12 square meter rented room with nothing but bare hands and a determination no one could measure. 6 years later, I came back, not for revenge, but to show them you can be erased from a group chat, but you can't be erased from your own life story. Chapter 1. Me the Canteen Girl. I'm the youngest of three siblings. My older sister is a doctor, my brother is a software engineer working abroad, and me, I work at a middle school canteen. Yep, you heard that right, a canteen. Frying fish cakes, wrapping sticky rice, washing food trays. Jobs that don't require a degree carry no prestige and, of course, are never anything my family is proud of. I used to try hard to be worthy of them. I went to university, chased internships, even worked in marketing at a small company, but then the company went bankrupt. I was unemployed, and the only thing I managed to keep was experience managing menus, controlling ingredient costs, and dealing with unruly students. My sister often said, she's the best in the family at frying sausages. My brother would just scoff whenever my mom mentioned me during Zoom dinners. They joke that girl probably only knows how to deliver food. And my mom. She was always polite. But the way she praised me for being hardworking, well-behaved, quiet didn't sound like compliments. It was more like how people pity a stray cat. Docile doesn't bother anyone and easy to forget. I don't blame them. I'm just tired. Tired of always feeling like I'm lagging behind, like I'm out of sync with my own family. Even though I was there at every gathering, still the one cooking, still the one planning birthday parties for my nieces and nephews, I was still like a shadow. No one asked how I'd been. No one remembered my birthday. No one cared if I was dating or if I was okay. I figured maybe I just wasn't interesting enough for anyone to wonder. The year my dad had a stroke, everything became clearer than ever. No one told me. I only found out when an old classmate, now a nurse at the hospital, sent me a message saying my dad was in the ICU. I called my mom. She didn't pick up. I texted the family group chat and got a notification. You are no longer in this group. I thought it was a mistake. I called my sister. Busy. Called my brother. No answer. 2 days later, my mom finally texted me a single message. Don't come to the hospital. It's full of adults. No one has time to look after you. Adults. I was 27, and my mom still thought I needed someone to look after me. I stayed silent. Not because I wasn't angry, but because I was used to it, used to being dismissed, used to being left out of conversations, used to hearing polite but hollow statements like, she's doing okay, I guess. I stayed home. I ran the canteen. I placed ingredient orders. I opened my logbook and looked at the number I had just hit. Revenue from last month was up 18% compared to the same period last year. No one knew that the school canteen I was running was actually my own company. I had registered the business, had a tax code, and branches at 3 different schools. I hired 6 part-time employees, ran it like a supply chain model, and even coded my own inventory management software in Python. But I didn't tell anyone in the family because I knew they wouldn't understand. Or worse, they'd try to dismiss it because in their eyes, someone who had once been unemployed like me couldn't possibly be successful. So I just smiled, like always. Chapter 2, I went to the hospital. In my own car, I didn't go to the hospital right after I found out my dad had a stroke. Not because I didn't care, but because I wanted to see if they still remembered me, to see if anyone would ask, why didn't you come? Or did mom send the message by mistake? 3 days passed. Not a single message. I decided to go to the hospital. Not to prove anything, but because my dad, even though he had never taken my side, had also never mocked me like the others did, and I needed to see him. Just once. I didn't take a grab, didn't ask anyone for a ride. I called my personal driver, the one who's worked full time for me ever since I opened my third Canteen branch. I wore a cream-colored coat, polished black leather shoes, and carried a simple fabric bag like I always did. I didn't dress up because I've never needed that to prove my worth. I stepped out of the car in front of the International Hospital, walked straight into the emergency ward with a basket of fruit and a few essentials I knew my dad would need. No one recognized me. My sister walked past, didn't even glance. My brother was sitting in the hallway, face buried in his phone. I walked to the hospital room and knocked. My mom opened the door. She looked at me like I was a stranger. "Why are you here?" I stayed silent, placing the basket on the table. My dad was asleep, his face wrinkled but peaceful. I looked at him for a long time, then turned to my mom. "I just came to visit." She said nothing else, just stood there coldly as if my presence alone was an inconvenience. I turned to leave. On my way down the hallway, I saw my sister standing with a doctor, her face serious, probably discussing Dad's condition. I didn't interrupt. I just stood, quietly, watching the heart monitor beat steadily inside the emergency room. That's when my little niece ran up. She froze when she saw me, then beamed. "Auntie," I smiled, bent down and hugged her. That little girl was the only one in the family who hadn't yet been trained to look down on me. But then my sister came over, pulled her away without so much as looking at me. She said it loud right in front of me, "Auntie's busy selling sticky rice, don't bother her." I just smiled. And for the first time, it didn't hurt anymore. I just saw it clearer than ever. They would never see me as an adult, never consider me their equal. So I went home, and I decided to do something I never thought I would tell my story. I opened my laptop and wrote a short blog post, "Is running a canteen really a failure?" I wrote about my work, about supply chains, about how I hired underprivileged students to work part-time, helping them learn to cook and manage their own finances. I wrote about the joy of seeing students enjoy their meals, the trust from teachers placing food orders. I even shared the time I won a bid to cater a district-level conference, serving over 500 meals in one morning. I didn't say I was successful. I just told my real story, no embellishment, no bragging. Just a canteen worker doing it with all her heart. That post went more viral than I expected. Within a week, I had dozens of messages from parents, economic students, small startups. Some wanted me to share my experience. Some proposed collaborations. Some simply said, "Thank you for saying what I never dared to." I don't think I'm better than anyone, but one thing I know for sure, I am no longer the shadow of my family. Chapter 3. When they realized I wasn't poor anymore, I didn't think they would read my blog post. Really, my family never cared about anything I did. But turns out, they were watching, silently, and ready to pounce as soon as they found a reason to resent me a little more. I know exactly where it started. A friend of my sister's sent her the blog. She just messaged a simple line. "Wow, your little sister's amazing." I was thinking of asking her to consult on meal plans for my kids' preschool, and just a few hours after that, I started getting messages from people who were familiar, yet strange. The first message came from my brother-in-law, a man who never typed anything beyond okay in our family group chat. He asked if I could suggest how to register for a food safety license, since he was thinking of investing in a food business. Then came my aunt, the one who once scolded me saying, "Only the uneducated go cook for hire," now texting to ask if I could help her son find a good vocational school. And then came my sister. She messaged, "Are you really doing all this? Mom said you're just cooking for a school." I replied with just one line, "I do more than Mom thinks." Her response was both amusing and strange. "If you're so capable, why don't you come home and take care of Dad? Stop showing off. Successful people don't need to brag." I didn't respond. I knew this game. They belittle you until you do something they can't. And once you do it, they say, "You're showing off." A week later, when Dad was transferred home to recover, I visited. And this time, They treated me like a stranger. The atmosphere in the house froze the moment I walked in. Mom said nothing. My sister was so cold I could almost hear her teeth clench behind that fake smile. I sat beside Dad's bed and placed a fruit basket down. He looked at me and smiled. "How have you been, sweetheart?" I nodded gently, told him a little about work, about some of the employees I was helping pay for college. Dad was quiet for a moment, then said something I'll never forget. "I didn't expect you to go this far. I'm sorry that I never asked what you wanted." I choked up. That apology late, but still precious. At least one person in the family had once thought of me with regret. But that silence didn't last long. 4 days later, I found out I had been removed from the family group chat again. The reason I didn't respond politely to my sister's message, and I was uncooperative with relatives because I refused to invest 50 million VND into a snack food idea my brother-in-law had just come up with. I wasn't angry. I just felt relieved. I realized some families never want you to succeed unless your success still fits in the palm of their hand, unless you still owe them, unless you're still one step beneath them. But when you dare to rise, dare to choose your own path, dare to say no, to them you're ungrateful. And me, I don't need that role anymore. I accept that I'm no longer a part of their story, because now I'm writing my own. Chapter 4. When they tried to destroy my reputation in front of the world. I used to think, if I hadn't done anything wrong, no one could ruin what I'd built. I was wrong. A week after I was removed from the family group chat for the second time, I received an email from a new potential partner, someone I had never worked with before, but the message left me unsettled. "I've just heard some unpleasant things about your company. I hope they're not true." I thought it was a misunderstanding. But then came a second email, then a third. And when a preschool parent messaged to ask, "Are you involved in any food fraud scandals?" I knew something was seriously wrong. I started investigating. And just as I suspected, someone was spreading false information about me. They created an anonymous account and began posting in parenting Facebook groups with headlines like, "Warning, ABC Meal Company shows signs of shady practices. CEO used to work in a school canteen, now calls herself an entrepreneur. Watch out. Don't let your child be a test subject." These posts weren't attacking the quality of the food, they were attacking me. Personally, they dug into my past, my career, and even posted an old photo of me in a kitchen uniform with the caption, "Back then she was a lunch lady, and now she thinks she's a startup founder." I looked at that photo and I wasn't angry, but I felt sad. Sad that someone had to dig up the past just to try and drag me down. But more than sadness, I knew exactly who had done it. One of the accounts posting was named Lan Huai, a name that matched my sister's old Facebook profile. And when I traced the profile picture, it was a photo she used 4 years ago. I called her. No texting, no beating around the bush. I wanted to hear it from her directly. She picked up her voice calm like nothing had happened. "Hello?" I asked directly. "Are you the one talking bad about me online?" And she laughed, a kind of laugh that sent a chill down my spine. "You think someone's that bored? You think you're that famous?" I didn't need more evidence. That answer was enough. She didn't deny it, but she didn't admit it either. She just laughed, because she knew the damage she'd sown was already spreading. She knew I couldn't do anything. Those accounts were anonymous, untraceable. I hung up, heart pounding, not from fear, but from disappointment. I used to think, if I became successful, my family would be proud. But the truth is, some people will hate you more the moment you no longer need them. I lost a few contracts after those rumors, but what I didn't lose was the trust of the people who truly knew me. A school principal once told me, "I choose the person, not the gossip." And I choose the same. I choose the truth. I choose to keep doing the work I love. I choose not to fight their way, but mine silently, and let success speak for me. Chapter 5, I showed up with a new name and the whole family froze. 3 weeks after that night, I called my sister. Something unbelievable happened. My father had a stroke. I know we weren't close anymore, but he was still my dad. The man who taught me how to ride a bike, who used to carry me through the rain on his old Honda Dream. I couldn't just not care. The problem was, no one told me. I only found out because a friend working as a nurse at the hospital happened to see his name on the patient chart and messaged me. Hey, your dad's been admitted. It's serious. Does your family know yet? The whole family already knew. It's just that they didn't consider me part of the family anymore. They created a separate group chat to keep each other updated. They took turns staying at the hospital. They even hired a private ambulance. But no one sent me a single word. I stayed silent. Silent until one day I received a call from the hospital itself. The person in charge of billing said, "Hello, Ms. CEO Nguyen. We have a payment that needs confirmation for a patient transfer service from a private residence. It seems your brother registered your company's service." I froze, and then I remembered my company had recently partnered with an emergency medical transport service for our education clients. It was brand new, only one completed trip so far, and the very first customer was my own family. They had unknowingly hired my company, not realizing I was the one behind it. I double-checked the contract. The signer was my sister-in-law, and suddenly, I had a choice. I could quietly let it slide, handle it silently later. Or I could show up as my true self. That day, I wore a white lab coat, carried the payment paperwork, and walked straight to the hospital's administrative desk. A woman standing there looked at me from afar and froze. It was my sister-in-law. She stammered, "You work here?" I smiled. "No. I'm the one who approved the service you used." Her eyes blinked rapidly. I could see her glance around, checking if anyone nearby was listening. "You mean you work for that company?" I shook my head. "No. I founded that company." The room went completely silent. Right then, my sister, the one who had smeared me online, walked in and froze in place. "What are you doing here?" I handed her the invoice. "You're using a service from my company. I'm here to verify the payment." Neither of them could say a word. They just stared at me, not like the canteen worker little sister, but like someone they could no longer control. I didn't stay long. I left the paperwork, paid the invoice with the company account, and left. I wasn't there for revenge. I just wanted them to know I never disappeared. I just chose a different path, and this time I'd walked far enough that they had no choice but to finally see me. Chapter 6. My family came to my office and made a proposal that left me speechless. I thought the meeting at the hospital was the end of it, that after that moment they would leave me alone. I was wrong. 2 weeks later, on a Monday morning, while I was in an internal meeting with the marketing team, my assistant stepped in and whispered in my ear, "There's a group of people. They say they're your family. They showed up without an appointment." I looked up, frowning. Family. I walked out to the reception lounge and froze. My mother, my sister, my brother-in-law, and even my youngest aunt, all of them were sitting there looking uneasy and tense. They looked at me like they were seeing a celebrity. No one spoke for the first few seconds. Then my mother stood up. "You look so different. I almost didn't recognize you." I said nothing. I waited for her to continue. "There's been some misunderstandings, I know, but no matter what, we're still family." I wanted to laugh. Misunderstandings. They called everything they did to me a misunderstanding. Your father needs a lot of support now. His treatment and long-term care. The family can't handle it all anymore. So we thought, since you're doing well, maybe. I cut her off. "You're saying I should pay for the people who once disowned me?" No one replied. My sister jumped in. You don't have to be so harsh. We're still family. You've made it now, and the rest of us. I lifted my head and looked her straight in the eye. Do you remember what you once posted about me on Facebook? That I was a dropout, a failure, a freeloader? Her face turned red, and she looked away. I turned to the entire group. All of you once blocked me from the family group chat when Dad was hospitalized. No one asked if I was alive or dead. You all treated me like a disgrace, and now you need me. My mom lowered her head. She stayed quiet. Then she softly said, I'm sorry, but I don't know what else to do. That sentence, I hadn't waited my whole life to hear it, but when it came, it brought no satisfaction. I still love my dad. I don't hate my mom, but I'm no longer that little girl, the one who used to chase after scraps of affection. I spoke slowly. I'll cover all of Dad's hospital bills, but not out of obligation. Because I want to, and from this point on, we're no longer bound to each other. They left in silence. No one argued. As the elevator doors closed, I turned around and saw my team watching through the glass wall. I smiled. They didn't know what had just happened, but they saw me standing tall, right where I belonged. I don't need them to love me, respect me, or even apologize. I just need them to never again have the power to make me feel small. I once thought my success was meant to prove something, but now I understand. I have nothing to prove to anyone. All I need is to live as myself and never apologize for that. Chapter 7. A letter from the last person I expected, and a decision that changed. I thought everything had ended after that meeting at my company. I had drawn a clear line, no more ties, no more entanglements. But a week later, my assistant placed an envelope on my desk. It was sent from the nursing home. I opened it. It was handwritten. The penmanship was shaky, but still familiar. It was from my father. My daughter, your mother, and the others don't know I'm writing this. I don't know if you'll even read it, but I have to try. I have no excuse for what happened. I let your mother make all the decisions. I chose silence when I should have spoken up. And that cost me you. But when I saw you walk into that hospital room, I realized I had lost something permanent. You stood there, calm, steady, and distant, like someone I no longer recognized. I used to think you'd never amount to much. But now, I feel so small writing these words. I don't dare ask for your forgiveness, but I hope that one day you might look at me, not as someone who abandoned you, but as someone trying to make things right, even if it's far too late. With all the regret a father can carry, Dad, I don't know how long I cried after reading it. Not because of forgiveness, not even because of the bond between father and daughter, but because, for the first time in my life, he called me my daughter. All my life, I used to wonder if I disappeared, would anyone notice? The answer used to be no, but now, maybe it's yes, just a little. A letter, a confession, a faint, flickering light, but real. I didn't write back. I didn't visit right away. But I kept that letter in my desk drawer next to my latest business plan, because I now understand forgiveness isn't shaking hands and pretending nothing happened. Forgiveness is refusing to let the past control the present. A few days later, I received an interview request from a well-known business magazine. They wanted to tell the story, the girl her family dismissed, and her journey to becoming a millionaire CEO from a tiny studio apartment. I took 3 days to reply, because I knew. If I said yes, I would no longer be anonymous. I'd be stepping into the light, and everyone would see the full story, even those who once branded me a failure. But then I asked myself, why not? Why should I feel ashamed of the path I survived? So I nodded. I accepted. And the article was published 1 week later. Headline, From Lunch, Lady to CEO, the story of a girl. Her family once cast aside. And just 24 hours after it went live, I received an email from my sister. It said, only mom says you've smeared the family. Are you satisfied now? I didn't reply. Because no, I'm not satisfied that they're hurt. I'm just satisfied that I never have to bow my head to them again. Chapter 8. When the world knew my name and a stranger made me cry. After that article, everything changed faster than I expected. The company inbox exploded. Our website nearly crashed from the traffic. One person wrote, "Your story made me stand up and walk out of my in-laws' house." Another said, "Thank you for giving me the courage to apply for a job, even though my mother always said I was as stupid as my father." I realized I wasn't alone, and I wasn't the first to survive being cast out by my own family. 3 days later, I received an express delivery package. No sender, no note. Just an old leather notebook with a faint ink message inside, "I don't know you, but you changed my life." Tucked inside was a piece of paper folded in four, a divorce form, along with a short letter my husband always told me, "If you leave, no one will ever want you." Um, but when I heard you say I was removed from my family's group chat, but that doesn't define my worth, I realized no one has the right to call me useless unless I believe it myself. Thank you for not staying silent. I'm not afraid anymore. I couldn't hold back my tears, partly from emotion, partly from fear. My story no longer belonged just to me. It had become a banner for those who had once suffered in silence. But fame doesn't come with only support. I started receiving anonymous messages. "You're just an ungrateful brat. I'm an old friend of your mother's. Aren't you ashamed? Making up drama for fame. Huh, you're trash." I wasn't shocked, not because people hated me, but because so many were terrified of someone like me daring to speak up. And after everything, the only person I truly wanted to hear from was my mother. I sent her a photo of the notebook and the divorce paper. No explanation. Just four simple words. "I am not silent." That night, I had a strange dream. I was standing in front of my childhood home. The door was open. Mom, Dad, my sister, all sitting at the dinner table. I walked in. No one looked up. No one said my name. I just stood there in silence. Then I turned around, walked straight out the door. No tears, no pain, just freedom. When I woke up, I knew I was ready. I started posting short videos sharing my journey. From a girl cooking school meals in a canteen to a female CEO running a company with nearly 80 employees, all from a 60 square meter studio apartment. I talked about the moments I was looked down on, the words my mother once said, and the feeling of being kicked out of the group chat when my dad had a stroke. No sugarcoating, no hiding. I just told it exactly as it happened. And that was what made hundreds of thousands stop and listen. I once lived in silence thinking even if I told my story, no one would understand. But I was wrong. All it takes is one person to speak up, and hundreds will follow. I am not a victim of my family. I am a survivor. And now I am the voice for those who still cannot speak. Chapter 9. My mother sued me, and I said nothing. So the whole country could hear about a week after my third video was posted, the one about how a family group chat redefined my self-worth. I received a yellow envelope from a law office. At first I thought it was a collaboration invitation, but no, it was a court summons. Plaintiff, my biological mother, charges defamation tarnishing family reputation and emotional damage. I sat there staring at those three bold lines. What I felt wasn't shock, wasn't anger, it was amusement. This was the same woman who once said, "If you won't obey, then don't call me mom," now suing me for simply recounting exactly what she had said. I didn't cry. I didn't call a lawyer right away. I didn't post an angry status online. I did only one thing. I printed every video script I had ever shared, each with a note. Everything stated is true, and I have evidence. And then I stayed silent. On the day of the hearing, my mother showed up with a young, well-dressed lawyer. She didn't look at me, didn't say hello. She just fixated on reading aloud the parts she believed I had made up. My attorney, a middle-aged woman, who like me had once been a single mother, asked my mom only one question. "Do you have any evidence your daughter told lies?" My mother scoffed. "Evidence? I don't need evidence. I'm her mother." My lawyer simply smiled. "Then let's call the witnesses. The people who heard her story firsthand." I hadn't expected it. Nearly 40 people had sent handwritten letters to the court. Former classmates, the owner of the canteen where I once worked, the doctor who treated me after I collapsed from working 14-hour days, a neighbor who remembered the night I was kicked out of the house with just a backpack. No one exaggerated. No one dramatized. They just recounted the truth everyone knew, except my mother. The court ruled I was not guilty. Every video and post fell within the boundaries of personal storytelling. No distortion, no insults, no fabrication. But the most unforgettable part wasn't in the verdict. It was when the judge, an older man with silver hair, looked directly at my mother and said, "You say you're her mother, but there is no evidence you ever protected her. Meanwhile, she has 80 employees, millions of supporters, and not a single word from her was bitter. Her silence was the greatest proof that she never needed to tear anyone down to be heard." As the hearing ended, I stood up. I didn't look at my mother, didn't say goodbye, felt no satisfaction, only relief. That night, I turned on my laptop, sat in front of my webcam like always, and recorded a short video. No effects, no background music. I said, "Today my mother sued me and I didn't fight back because I don't need to shout to defend myself. I just needed to stand still and let those who heard me speak on my behalf." If you've ever been called useless, a disgrace, or the family's shame, remember this: you don't need anyone's approval to live your truth. That video reached 12 million views in 3 days. And not once did I mention my mother. I only spoke about those who dared to believe in themselves. I used to be afraid that telling the truth would mean losing my family forever, but as it turns out, the truth doesn't take anything away. It simply returns what was never really yours to begin with. Chapter 10, the birthday party that made me craquer. In the elevator, I didn't know why. That day, everyone was looking at me like they were hiding something. My secretary kept nervously dropping her pen 3 times. The HR manager told me I should take an early lunch. You should get a bit of rest. And the marketing team, they said they needed an emergency meeting, then dragged me into the auditorium. I immediately suspected something serious. Power outage, a client pulling out. Did someone get fired? But when the door swung open, I froze. The auditorium was pitch black, and then pop, the lights turned on. A chorus of voices shouted, "Happy birthday, boss." In front of me stood over 80 employees, wearing shirts with our company logo, holding a cake balloons, and a massive banner that read, "Thank you for not giving up on yourself and for building this place for all of us." I stood there speechless. The cake had my real name on it, not the nickname my old classmates used to tease me with. The gift was a small beanie, the same style as the one I lost when I was 17. They had tracked down the exact same design. Then someone played a short video, a montage of thank you messages from the team. A young accountant, teary-eyed, said, "If you hadn't given me a second chance after I got fired for having a child, I would have quit this profession forever." A logistics staff member shared, "I used to think I had no future. I only finished middle school. Now I have a home, a child, a car thanks to this job, and thanks to you for never looking down on anyone." I tried to hold back tears. I really tried. But then they played a clip from my very first video where I said I was removed from the family group chat when my dad was hospitalized. But now I have 80 people who would show up at the hospital if I ever fell sick. And I broke down, not from pain, but from healing. I stepped into the elevator alone after the party. The mirror reflected me, mascara smudged, but smiling uncontrollably. I looked at myself and thought I was once called useless, a burden, the disappointing sibling. But today, I'm the one who created 80 jobs, a company, a community. I'm no longer the child left out of a group chat. I'm the one whose absence would be noticed in a team meeting. That night, I went home, turned on my laptop, and typed a simple post: "Thank you for staying. Not in my past, but in the journey I chose to start over." I know my mother may still be angry. My siblings may still laugh behind my back. But I don't make videos to get revenge. I tell these stories so that people who've been dismissed can know they are not small. You may have been kicked out of the group, told you didn't belong, labeled as invisible, but remember, as long as you don't give up on yourself, the world will one day have to learn to see you differently. And if they don't, then you'll build a place for yourself, one they'll never be able to reach. Thank you for listening to my story. The story of a canteen girl who was erased from a group chat, but 6 years later became the one a courtroom stood behind. And on her birthday, an entire company stood up just to say thank you for not giving up. I used to think no one can hurt you more than your own family, because they're the ones you love, the ones you trust. But I've also learned this, sometimes that pain doesn't come to break you. It comes to wake you up, to make you look back and choose the right place to begin again. I'm not sharing this story for sympathy. I'm sharing it because someone out there might be feeling what I once felt, dismissed, abandoned, invisible. If that person is, you remember this, your worth isn't defined by their praise. It's not in a group chat invite. It's in the way you rise and turn pain into a force that builds something no one saw coming. Thank you for listening to one of the truest and most personal stories I've ever told. And if you've ever been underestimated, let this video be your reminder. You don't need anyone's permission to shine. I'll see you in the next story, where we won't avoid the pain. We'll turn it into power.